If you've ever opened the Revit Family Editor and immediately closed it, you're not alone. It can feel like a whole different world from your typical Revit project. But once you understand how to use reference planes, create geometry, and control it with parameters, you unlock one of Revit's most powerful tools. BIM Depot is doing a 5-part beginner series on Revit family creation. For the first video, I'll walk you through the essential skills to build your first Revit family the right way. No fluff, just clean, flexible geometry that actually works in your projects. And if you want a head start, check out BIM Depot. We offer beginner-friendly family packs and templates so you don't have to start from scratch. Hit like and subscribe to see the other videos in this series. Let's build your first custom family. To get started to create a new family, in Revit, you'll click on Families New, and you'll get this dialog box. Within this dialog box, you'll see a bunch of different Revit family categories. This really covers everything from, just the most minute things, so baluster, all the way down to windows, structural stuff, profiles, generic models, detail items. So for this tutorial, we'll just create a simple box. So we'll do generic model. You'll notice that there's loads of different generic models here. So there's just a standard generic model. There's wall-based, roof-based, line-based, and so on. For this will just be the most generic, the easiest one to use. So once you have that selected, click open. So once we're in this space, you'll notice that several tabs open up. So the reference level just means plan in family creation. You'll see a front elevation, view 1, so this is a 3D, and then an elevational view. Typically, I always like to start in this view. You'll notice that there's 2 reference planes. If we go to properties, you'll see it's the center. It's identifying it as the center, front and back, and then the center left and right. These are locked and are kind of like the origin for the Revit family. So if we're making just a simple box, we can come up here to extrusion. And then it's going to give you a lot of options within the Modify tab. So here you'll notice that this is similar to like a filled region. So it gives you the ability to sketch things. If we click on this, we can just draw a regular square. And then again, you'll notice the same similar sketch lines here in magenta. So once we have that, we can click check. And then you'll notice now we have this free floating box that we have grips so we can control it. And if we go to a 3D view, you'll see a similar thing, so it's a 3D version of that box. So if we were to load this into a project right now, we wouldn't really be able to do anything with it. To load into the project, you just click Load into Project. So you'll notice that there's no option to really change much about this. The size is what the size is in the family file, and this really is it. So it's just this box shape. If we come back here, we can actually start to control a lot of this within the actual project space. So the main way that we do this, you could, if you hit DA on your keyboard to create a dimension, you can dimension just the sides of the box. And then if you click on the dimension, you'll notice here it says label. Right now it does not have a label, and there's really no option here. So what this is a parameter. So a parameter is essentially a way to control certain things of the family. So in this instance, it's going to allow us to control the dimension, so the width here. If we want to create a new label, a new parameter, click on this button here, create parameter. And then this is going to pop up with the parameter dialog box. So let's name this width. And then there are some other options that we'll go over in the next video, but for right now, we'll just leave all these settings the same. So width, and then we will call this one, click OK. And then now, if we load this into the project and then click Edit Type, you'll notice that the length and the width is now available here. We can change this to a different size. Click OK. You'll notice that the size of the box is now changed. It's changed based on the parameters that we gave it and the dimension string that we used. So if we come back here, want to control this more, I typically think this is kind of bad practice how I did it here. The preference is always to use reference planes. The reference planes just a better way of controlling things, and it's more predictable once it gets into the family. So let's go ahead and delete these. Go to Create and click on Reference Plane. Now that we have these, let's go ahead and associate the geometry with the reference planes. So there's a few ways that we can do it. With our grips, we can drag it over. And once that highlights here, so the reference plane highlights blue, you'll snap, you'll notice this lock icon. So go ahead and click lock. And then now if we grab that reference plane and pull it, you'll notice that the geometry gets pulled with it. So another way to associate these, if you click on the geometry itself, edit extrusion, you can pull the line across. You'll notice that the same blue highlight happened. Click lock. You can use your align command. So now if we move any of these reference planes, the associated portion of that geometry is going to move with it. One of the things you should always do with your reference planes, if you click on it, you'll notice that in our other category, you'll notice that is reference, it says weak reference right now. You have some options for how we're assigning this. So some of the big ones, not a reference, strong reference, weak reference. So essentially what this is, so if we go into our project and we hover over this, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there, center, front, back. Now we're hovering over the reference plane that we were just looking at. It doesn't really give us much information. And then, so if we come back here, I always like to just be really specific with how we do this, strong reference and weak reference. So let's say if we were to do, this is a strong reference. Essentially what that is, if we come and we use our align commands, you'll notice that when I'm hovering over this stuff, it captures it's more dominant on when we're on this, around this area. So this horizontal, that was a weak reference. This vertical is a strong reference. So you can see that in the bottom left again. So it kind of just prioritizes it, which is helpful if you want, especially when you have things close, reference planes close together and you want one to be the dominant, but you want the backup to be, still available. So I always like to, when they're the big ones, so what I mean by that is like, this is the, the front. So we can give it front. This is the left-hand side. So you can see back, top, bottom. And really assigning this, it's kind of giving a lot more information to this family. And it allows you, for example, in the case of cabinets, so it's not always clear what is the back and what is the front in a cabinet family. So it's always super helpful to label that. Let's say this is the front, this is the back. So now when you're aligning your families to the wall, your cabinet families, you always know kind of once that's loaded in, you can hover over it, and then in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see back, you can see front, left, right, and then center. So one of the nice things about if you're to give it this center, front, back, center elevation, and so on, it's nice because in the project space now, if we have our dimension string here and we click edit type, you'll notice that centerline tick pattern. So essentially, you can give it an automatic centerline. And now you'll notice that because this is a centerline here in this family, it's automatically giving it that centerline symbol, which can be super helpful for a lot of different families. And then because this, this is given our center, left, right, front, back, it's just automatically, it knows, hey, this is the center of the object and we can center it. So, good use for this is that if we're dimensioning to something and we want to, specify, hey, this is to the center of the object, not one of the faces, always great to have that centerline symbol there. And then you can also kind of give it a custom name. So this is really nice for like furniture families, door families, when it starts to get really complex and you have a lot of detail, it's always really, really good to have like an actual name for this. So, you can come up with your own naming scheme, but again, let's say this is a cabinet. So now we know it's the front. It's kind of like the, the overarching reference type. And then just to give it some specificity, we can say cabinet door. And then here, another thing that I like to do for like equipment families and stuff, furniture families, is actually just give it an extra reference plane. And then let's have that be a strong reference. So you can dimension it just like anything else. And then let's go ahead and name this our wall offset. So a lot of times with like fridges and beds and furniture, everything, you're not going to put it exactly right up against the wall. You want some space in between the wall and the furniture or the equipment. So this is really nice to be able to control. And then let's give it a parameter for ultimate control. So now if we load this into the project, now you'll notice, so if we had a wall located here, let's do our align command, AL, snap to our wall. And then you'll notice that our geometry is right here. But since we made that reference plane, now we can do this. And it's totally just based off of that reference plane. There is no extra line, there's no extra 3D geometry, it's just that reference plane. And then you'll notice how reference planes work. They just automatically will show the distance or like the max bounding box that object is. So the length here is the same as the dimension here. And then same thing for this one, you'll notice that the reference plane sticks down a little bit. So it's just taking the full length of the object. So now that we have the geometry associated with the reference planes, we can now dimension. So you'll notice now that this is our center reference plane. This is also a center reference plane. You'll notice that our box is not centered within that. So to do that, so we have a controlled center point within the family. We can add another dimension string and dimension to the center and then also the boundary reference planes. And then this little EQ symbol here, it has a cross through it, so it's not equal. We can click that. And then now it's always going to center our geometry kind of based around that center reference plane. So now if we were to change this, you'll notice that the adjacent, the lower portion here, it also adjusts, and then it's always equal here. So let's go ahead, load this back into the project. Now you'll notice that if we were to dimension to this, now we have a center point that is actually accurate to the center point of the object. And that's really associated with our reference plane. So if we hover over this in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that it says center front back, and then this one's center left right. So now that we have this, we also, our plan dimensions, so the length and width, those are controlled, but we also want to be able to control the height. So if we go to any of the elevations within the project browser, you will see kind of this elevational view. So again, we're always going to use our reference planes to control different parameters. So let's go ahead and use our align commands, align the top of the box, choose lock, and then we will add a dimension here, and then we can also add a height parameter here. So one way we can do this is the way that I showed you previous. You can see label in here, now we see these. We can create a new height parameter. An additional way to do that, if you come to family types, and then within the family types dialog box, you'll see this new parameter icon in the lower left-hand corner. Click that, and this is the same exact dialog box for the parameter properties. Click OK. Let's give it a height. Click OK. Another way to access the label, if you come into properties, where it says label, right now it has none, click height. So now this is associated with the height that it already had. So you can see that it changed within our family type dialog box. We change back to 3, click apply. You'll notice that it changes here as well. So to load this back in one last time, let's click load into project. You will notice that family already exists. So if we're loading the same family in multiple times and it notices a change, you're given the option overwrite the existing version or overwrite the existing version and its parameter values. So the difference between these two, if we change something about the parameters, the values, so say we change the dimension, this is essentially going to change the dimension within the project space as well. This option here kind of keeps the dimensions as they were in the project space. So essentially it's project space versus family file space. So once we're within here, let's go ahead and look at a 3D view, select our family, and be able to see that we can now control the height as well. So it's a 3-dimensional object, so now we have 3-dimensional control over this. So you've just built your first parametric Revit family, and really that's a huge step. Getting comfortable with reference planes, constraints, and basic parameters is the foundation for creating smart and usable content in Revit. In the second video in the 5-part beginner series on Revit family creation, we'll take it further by adding formulas, visibility toggles, and shared parameters to make your families even more powerful. If you want Revit families that are ready to drop into your project, head over to BIM Depot for high-quality pre-built content. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got more videos coming your way in this 5-part series.